I have just received my notice that the bailiff is going to call to collect my council tax. So I want to tell you why I'm refusing to pay. Central and local government have been told for decades by robust search of the universities that inadequate income, debt and inequality impact on mental and physical health. Despite that robust evidence, central government has since 2010 shredded already inadequate benefit incomes, and local authorities began to tax them in 2013. And they used the full force of the law to enforce the tax against our poorest fellow citizens. Haringey Council Computer has now sent out the next group of council tax cases to NEWLYN, the bailiffs. It sent out 11,000 last year. I received my letter last week, adding £115 costs and £75 bailiff's fees to my arrears of £1,116 and 17 pence, demanding payment by next Thursday. The summons to court, and they issued 21,000 last year, and the issuing of the liability order and the dispatch of the bailiffs to all of us had been done by computer. The system is in fact inhuman. It has no human contact with the constituents of the councillors of Haringey at all. I'm asking you who have never tangled with the job centre or never had the experience of applying to a local authority for housing or council tax benefit to use your imaginations to understand the extreme violence of councils sending the bailiffs to the homes of people struggling to survive on shredded benefits. The only time the personal contact gets in is when things have gone seriously wrong and somebody is very worried. To those who've had this experience and who are in trouble with the council tax debt and so much other of the benefit system, I offer you my solidarity. Imagine you are a lone parent claiming benefit, one of 450,000 in the UK, who just visited a food bank to feed your 3 children, one of over 1 million visiting food banks last year. You get home with the children, having had to walk to and from the food bank several miles because you can't afford and you don't have any money to afford the bus ticket. And you find a letter from the bailiffs. It has added £115 court costs and their fee of £75 to your £300 council tax arrears. They demand you pay in full within a week, or they will visit you and add another £135, another £235, and then another £110 if they call to collect your property to take it to an auction. The auction will produce money to pay off their fees first, and then the tax. And on several occasions I know people have just not had enough valuable stuff to pay either the fees or the tax. Or you are a single adult working for an agency on a 0 hours contract, one of over 900,000 in the UK and rising. You've not had any work for a month, so you have no money. And the letter arrives, the dreaded letter from the bailiffs arrives. Or the job centre has moved you to the universal credit and you've not had any income at all for 6 weeks. And yet again the dreaded letter arrives. Or you're already paying £200 rent a month from the benefit income needed for food, water, fuel, clothes, transport and other necessities because your benefit has been capped at one of the 2 limits. The limits are £384.62 a week outside London and £442.31 a week inside London. To make the caps work, they cut housing benefit and lead you to cover the rent the housing benefit does not pay. So you're left with £200 rent and you can't afford food and you can't afford your council tax. And that letter arrives saying the bailiff wants his fees. Or you're an adult receiving £73.10 a week. The total number is about 3.6 million in 2016-17. They add the children's and the housing and the council tax benefits to that £73 a week. So it's the basic adult cornerstone of the benefit system. It's been reducing in value since 1979, and it is now virtually worthless. Or dare say was stopped for 1 month, 3 months or 3 years by the job centre, by job centre benefit sanction. And there have been 1.8 million, or sometimes somebody said 4 million the other day. And you get the same benefit, you get the same bailiff's letter saying they're coming to get you. Or your income is stopped, while your income is stopped by a sanction, you cannot pay off your council tax or rent arrears or any other debt like utility debt because you don't have any money for 1 month, 2 months or 3 years. The debts pile up during that time and are unmanageable when the sanction ends. You get threats of eviction for rent arrears, and of course along comes the letter from the bailiff for your council tax arrears. Or you're already trying to cope with the bailiffs due to the magistrates' fines because you could not afford a TV licence, or your child has been truanting because the child gets as much upset as you do by the constant stress imposed upon us all by the state. And you get the same letter from the bailiffs. Or you're disabled and a private company applying the work capability assessment has failed you. And your income has been reduced to £73.10 a week, which, as we know, is all but worthless. Along comes the letter from the bailiff. Or you've just learned that the council is planning to demolish your council home, as so many people have in London. Same letter from the bailiffs. Or any of the above. They happen simultaneously, or they happen in grinding succession, one after the other, things getting worse and worse. And that's all due to the vicious laws and regulations of 3 powerful government departments. The DWP, the MOJ, the DCLG and the local authorities. They're pitched against the most vulnerable households. So it's 3 powerful government departments against 1 household. And along comes the bailiff's letter. And all that's to enforce a civil debt against our most vulnerable fellow citizens. If they ask you why the Rev Paul Nicolson is refusing to pay his council tax, tell them he's a member of the Christian faith, and like all great faiths, it has a rule which demands that we love our neighbour as ourselves. Christian love demands that we put the well-being of everyone at the top of our agenda, particularly the well-being of the most disadvantaged people in our words and actions. The treatment of the poorest UK citizens by government during the 10 years since the crash in 2007 has been deeply offensive to the Christian principles of love, peace and justice. The refusal to pay the council tax is nothing compared to the refusal of government to support the lives, health and well-being of people who need financial support to begin to flourish, to get themselves off the ground. You can't get off to work if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're visiting food banks and hopelessly in debt. And the government is forcing people into hunger and debt.